So in just a moment, we'll bring in. Oh, he's here now. He's here now. I think we're good. I think we're good to go.
Hi.
Oh, I can't hear you again. Hello?
Oh, I can hear you.
There, that's good. That's
I'm here.
better.
Perfect.
That's better. Anyone let me know if I need to adjust the volume. I can turn him up. I can turn me down. We can switch things around. Welcome. Welcome to, I'm so tempted to say the podcast because I do have a podcast. Welcome to the stream.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thanks a lot for coming on. I'm making a mistake here. I keep looking at the stream and then I see you moving really much later than you're actually.
Yes, I was doing the same thing. I'm gonna have to put something else over top of that. So I'm here looking at the chat and not looking at like you talking about 5 seconds ago.
Right. I think it's 3 seconds. Yeah, either way,
Well,
it's really bizarre. It's a bizarre thing. I get caught all the time looking at my stream and wondering what's wrong because it's so far behind.
yes.
So thanks. Thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for accepting this offer. I was so glad that you were able to do this. It's pretty last minute. And what are you doing? You're not really doing anything else this next week, are you?
No, it's really a pretty chill week for us. No, I'm actually literally I just was in the closet back there, pulling out clothes and trying to figure out what the heck I'm gonna bring for this trip that I have starting tomorrow to this place called Houston. So that's what I'm up to.
Nice. I'm dressed for Houston. I'm dressed for the weather. I understand it's going to be a little bit nippy.
Yeah, I'd bring a jacket if I were you.
The air conditioning might be cold. I run into that sometimes in
That
really
is
hot
true.
climates.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
I make a mistake and I dress for the cool weather and then. So yeah, how you're going tomorrow, right? You're headed there tomorrow.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
when
my
does
trip is there tomorrow.
when do people start arriving? That was one of my questions. Is set up tomorrow? Do people start getting there with their tents and stuff?
Usually we have most of our, I would say, exhibitors and attendees starting to come in Wednesday for the early arrivals. Thursday's a big day, and then Friday would probably be the peak where most people, if you're coming to the seminars on Friday, which is where we kick off the show at about 1 in the afternoon, some people can sneak in on Friday morning. I think a lot of people who are there Friday will come in Thursday night just to get themselves that little bit of buffer, and you're not trying to figure out what do I do with all my bags while I'm trying to go to these seminars that start at 1 in the afternoon. And then, of course, for those who are just attending the weekend, Saturday, Sunday, obviously Friday's that kind of big arrival day for everybody else. So it's a little bit of a mix, but I usually try to be the first one there. And I think we'll see. Every year I feel like I push it one day earlier because I'm just trying to give myself that like one day of like breathing before everything kind of starts to happen. So we'll see if Sunday was early enough, or maybe I'm going to have to be there Saturday next year.
Maybe. Well, I hope so.
Yes,
I hope so.
I agree.
I hope it grows that much that maybe you'll have to have it an extra day or something because the whole at least the desktop side seems to be really expanding, and I guess both sides because people are seem to be getting more and more ideas for how to use flight simming and more and more tools for doing it. So I have a lot of things I wanted to go over. First of all, how long has the expo been going?
Our first event was back in 2018. That was in Vegas. We did a show in 2019 in Orlando. Plan was to go back to Vegas for 2020, and we all know what happened to 2020. So obviously
Not a
had
clue.
to change those plans just a little bit around. And then we did our most recent show in September 2021 in San Diego. I
Mhm.
call it last year's show because it was 2021, but it was like the end of 2021. So it kind of feels like it was about a year ago. And now we've, of course, got our show coming up in Houston next week. So that's June 23rd to 25th, 2023. And of course, for those who don't know about us or are looking for more information, our website is flightsimexpo.com.
Like it says there, and it's there in the background. So
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I appreciate that
that's
image.
the
Yeah, I
place.
forgot to hide that
And
again.
also,
Yes.
I'm really excited about going, but I'm going to be very distracted and not be able to look at all the cool planes in the museum. I'm excited about that too, because I love
What a
flight
good
museums.
problem to have.
Yeah, isn't it? Too much
This
to
is
see.
a great one too. There's lots.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that you'll appreciate then is, of course, there are the airplanes in both of the hangars, but they've also got quite a bit going on around the hangars where there aren't actually FSExpo exhibitors. So there is the whole Texas Aviation Hall of Fame. They've got a really big education center, and that's all extra in addition to all of our exhibitor setup. So you'll be able to see all of that stuff without the distraction of flight sim going on. And then some of their airplanes will still be inside. Some of the airplanes will actually be outside that people have literally booked rides in, which is really cool. So they'll be flying a bunch of their warbirds and a bunch of their aircraft throughout the weekend, which is something that'll be a lot of fun for people who've booked those rides.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, and I saw it. It looks like somebody might be showing up in a 182 RG as well, and there's going to be, I know, a series.
Flight FX is bringing in the Vision Jet.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. Flight Chops from YouTube's bringing in the RV, so it's gonna be interesting. We're first year we've had an actual event on an airport, so that allows us to do this kind of thing that historically in a hotel on the Vegas Strip, it's a little tricky to fly your own airplane in there.
Well, the airport's not far. It's pretty close.
I know, that's true.
It is pretty close.
Good views of the airport from the hotel, but I don't know.
Right.
I'm sure in Vegas, I'm sure it's been done, but not by me.
But not by you. So how do you how did you decide where to have it?
It's always a bit of it's always a challenge, and we're going through that process right now actually for 2024 and beyond. It usually comes down to the community. So in normal non-COVID times when you kind of have your pick of where you go, we went out and did surveys of attendees. We would ask them where they wanted to be. We talked to our developer partners. We'd ask them the same questions. Because of COVID and how everything's gone for the past couple of years, we haven't been able to stick to that usual process the way that we would like to. And so if you think back to when our show was happening in September 2021, you basically couldn't enter the US if you lived in Europe. If you wanted to come from anywhere else in the world that was allowed to enter the US, you had to get a COVID test just before you left. You'd have to probably get one to come back. Some countries had quarantines if you were to arrive. And so that really made the event a challenging thing to run, not only for us dealing with all the restrictions and masks and all that domestically, but then the fact that you basically lost about half your audience from anyone who wanted to come in overseas. With that being the backdrop, we had to try to pick a show for this year that was going to be flexible enough to allow us to potentially have to make some changes depending on how everything went. Fortunately, that is mostly behind us now as far as I can tell. And so we were able to do this in the direction that made sense. But we were thinking, if we had to run another show that looked like San Diego, how could we be at a venue that had enough going on, i.e. the museum, where it wouldn't be the end of the world if we didn't quite have as many developers? Of course, that is exactly the opposite of what's happened. Now we have probably what's going to be our biggest events ever, completely sold out for Friday already. Saturday and Sunday are getting close. So definitely always recommending for people, people call me and they're like, can I buy tickets at the door? And I'm like, well, if there's tickets left, yes, but there is a cap on the venue because we want to keep everybody safe. And so if we get to that number, obviously that'll be the end of the ticket sales. So that's been a great problem for us to have this year and something that has made us just that much more excited as we look towards both this year's event next week and then into the future, getting this event back on the kind of track that it was back in 2019.
Yeah, to me it looks like the biggest event you've ever had, but that's because I'm only looking.
No, you're right.
It is okay.
Yes, it will.
And did it make? There was some kind of news item recently about a new sim or something
like that.
by
Yeah,
some some out of the way company. Yeah. Did that?
Something like that. Yeah.
Do you think that helped?
Yes, no, you can see the impact of that, and I hope Microsoft is prepared for the onslaught of questions that they're going to get. I've been saying to everybody, I'll be busy during this show. This is my work is basically the event. You guys are all here to have fun, so it's on you, the community, to pry as much information out of them as you possibly can over the course of the 2 days that you'll be seeing them on the show floor on Saturday and Sunday, and we'll see what they're willing to share during that announcement on Friday.
Oh yeah, I'm already of the mind that I've been through this before. I think there's a lot of people who didn't start with flight sims 15 plus years ago, so they're not used to the constant updates. I mean, when FSX went away and P3D came along, it was like, no, and then of course it was actually better, and each time it came out with a new one, it was better, and So I'm pretty excited about it. But yeah, there are many questions yet to be answered. The most important is how good do those helicopters fly? This community is a lot about helicopters, so
Yes.
that's always our question. How good are the helicopters?
And if you've not met Sergio, then I take it.
No, I haven't met him.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah, that'll be really fun. Extremely excited about that. And I was excited to hear that he's going to be there and representing the heli. It's funny because I've been, 1 degree of separation from him forever. I've never even met him online or anything, but we were in hover control together. I don't know if you knew about hover control. Yeah. So I got my license in hover control, which was really cool. You could get certified to fly helicopters in the sim. I think it was FSX. And it was really helpful because we used TeamSpeak, I think it was. TeamSpeak to fly those around, and real world pilots were helping you, although they were much easier than the helicopters today. And it's funny because we think it was so hard.
Yeah.
Someone in chat is asking me about this Schweitzer 300 that came out in the past week. Anonymous Tom, I'm actually going to fly that in a little bit as soon as we're done here. So stick around. I'll answer as many questions as I can about that. I mean, the quick answer is, if you like the Schweitzer 300, get it. It's awesome. There's some people have trepidations about that. Where was I going with this?
Helicopters. Sergio,
actually, the event itself. How many people are on your team?
Myself and a co-founder, Phil, run the show.
Mm-hmm.
He likes to hide in the background, so that's why he doesn't get to do any of these fun interviews, but it's okay. So he and I are the two people that organize this. We have a volunteer team sort of year-round that's about 5 to 7 people, depending on when you ask. And then there's a great group of volunteers that'll be about 30 strong that actually support us on site. And they're just all people who have come to this event in the past, or that I know through flight simulation, who've just wanted to continue to give back. So it's a wonderful team of people that help make this all happen, and I'm looking forward to seeing them all again. This event always just feels like it's kind of a big family gathering to me at this point, because we've done it now for so many years, and you'd start to see some of those familiar faces. So that's usually when people ask me, what's your favorite part of the show, that's usually my answer. It's like, I just love to hang out with these people and these good friends that I know and have known through these events and other things for many years now.
That's probably the biggest thing I'm looking forward to, meeting all these people I've never met. I mean, I've met a couple. Yeah. I've met a few of them through my podcast, and found out their real names and stuff.
Really? God.
I know. It's kind of funny. Oh, your name's Bill. Wow.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
But so that's really the main reason I'm going. I'm able to take vacations, and I've never been to Houston, and this sounded like, because there's a lot of gear, honestly, that's geared towards pilots like yourself, people flying the what we call the tube liners, and that's just not as much what I'm interested in. So but now, so that's part of why I'm going, really, to see if I can influence people at all to start making less expensive helicopter controls, because all the helicopter controls are kind of pricey.
Yeah.
They're a little up there. Also, I want to try out everything. That sounds fun. So how did you get interested in the sims, in flight sims? Why? I mean, obviously you have some interest.
Yeah, just a little, a passing interest. Yes. Yeah. It goes way back to probably in the 2006, 2007 time frame. This is when I was back in high school, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I just had this passion for aviation. No one in my family is a pilot or has really anything to do with aviation at all, but it just was something that was kind of interesting. And I don't remember if my parents got me they got me a Discovery flight as a Christmas present when I was younger. And I also remember vividly that I had downloaded that free trial of FSX that you could download, and it had just the two, was it the Juliana landing, and there was one other mission that you could do, and all I had was a keyboard. So I was trying to land that stupid jet on that freaking tiny runway with my keyboard, and it didn't go very well. But I remember just being interested in it way back then, and then I think eventually got FSX as a Christmas present, and it was just then onward, a journey of discovery through GameSpy and different communities that were part of that, and then eventually onto VATSIM. And to this day, I'm very active on VATSIM. I'm an air traffic controller in the Boston area on the network, which is just kind of the other side of the flying that I do in real life. So that's like a nice way to complement what I'm doing in reality. And been, flying quite a bit in the simulator pretty much up to when I got my commercial pilot job. And ever since then, it's been like, maybe I'm going to focus a little more on the air traffic control side because it's very hard to compete with real world flying. I mean, MSFS is doing a pretty darn good job. X-Plane 12 is looking great, but it's like those clouds just look a little more realistic when you're in real life.
Yeah, it's weird how that works.
I know.
I mean, because I started so long ago, I'm constantly amazed. I mean, I'll be flying along.
I am too.
Yeah, I'm constantly amazed, but it's not like when you get in a plane and go fly and there's
you'll see this like walking around the show too, like you'll be walking just down the corridor or whatever and you're like, is that like a simulator or is that a video of a plane? And you're like, that's a simulator. And then it's like, how the heck did they get theirs to look like that? Like, why doesn't mine look like that? I've had that experience a lot just walking through the show floor. So you'll have, I'm sure, the same thing. And that was even way back in like the P3D days. Sometimes I'm like, is that just default P3D? And they're like, no. So now we have MSFS, we have X-Plane 12. It's really changed things for sure.
Yeah, it's really made a big difference. Jepson 2001 is saying hello.
Hi.
And Gren, is it Gren? Hello. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for coming in. It is going to be epic. I agree. I can't wait to meet you. I'm glad. One of the most amazing scenery developers out there, as you probably know, for Microsoft Flight Sim. He does waterfalls, which I'm very fond of. When I got into Microsoft Flight Sim for the first time, I was coming from P3D and I also did X-Plane 12, and the difference was just shocking to me. It was shocking, and X-Plane 12 still has a lot of great features, but it doesn't look like it. It looked as close to real as I could imagine. I mean, especially coming from P3D, there's no comparison. There's really no comparison with all that technology. So did you use the Sims all through your training? Was that something that worked for you? And
yes, absolutely. And like every possible way, from the practicing flights to the air traffic control regulations, airspace knowledge, even just through to sort of inspiration. Like some days when, and I don't know what your journey to getting your PPL was like, mine just took forever, and it was like lesson after lesson, cancel for weather or maintenance, or it just always sounds like whenever you talk to a pilot, there's always this journey they go to just finally getting that private certificate. And so just all the way through that, whenever I had one of these setbacks, I would go hang out in TeamSpeak, which we still use TeamSpeak, by the way, here at BVA. This was like TeamSpeak 2 though, like the purple one, like that really old school one. And I'd go in there and you'd just be listening to people talking about flying, whether it was GA, whether it was airliner, and it was like, that was the inspiration all the way through. So FSX, especially P3D, kind of in the V3, V4 time frame, I should say. That was kind of my like heyday of actually flying the simulator. And again, nowadays it's more transitioned to like I'm on VATSIM probably way more than I should be.
That's what
my girlfriend says anyway. That's what my girlfriend says to me anyway.
Oh, that's what you're.
She's not a big fan.
She's not a big fan
of me or the simulator or VATSIM. I think of anything.
I hope she's a fan of you. If she's your girlfriend, I sure hope so. I started. I went through it pretty quick. I started in Burbank in a DA-20. I'm pretty sure it was. I still have and then I had like a 12-year gap because the school got messed up. I ran out of money. The school disappeared.
Yeah, this is what happens, right?
Yeah. And then I ended up training in a Cessna in Oregon, and I'm sure it's true in Canada too. Yeah, there's a lot of weather delays. If you show up and your instructor's going, so what do you think? What do you think of your personal minimums? What are you thinking of this day? It was usually like, no.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to work. I don't want to be at minimum, 1,000 feet from clouds. That's too close.
Yeah, and we were in southwestern Ontario in the winter, so it was like if the cloud ceiling was anywhere below like 2,000 feet, you couldn't do anything because you couldn't fly into the icing potential. And so, yeah, sure, maybe it's VFR at 1,000 feet, but you're not going to get much air work done down there. So it was very limiting. And then, of course, the summer, it's like, oh, great, it's warm, but there's the thunderstorm every afternoon, and you're trying to deal with that as well. So it was a bit of a challenge. I did a bunch of flight training out here, and then actually I moved out west for a while and both flight trained and worked in the west coast of Canada and the United States. And that's a whole different set of challenges out there. Like that's like you're just saying, it's low ceilings, it's fog. It's not so much the adverse weather of thunderstorms and icing that we tend to get here, but it doesn't matter either way. They get in your way, especially when you're trying to get started.
Yeah, weather's weather. I mean, for me, it was even the 10-knot crosswind. That's, we haven't really trained for that yet.
Yeah,
15-knot crosswind, no, not doing it. So
that was a big difference for me moving out west, because here, anywhere sort of in the like eastern portion of the country, like a 20-knot wind is like no big deal. Like if you didn't go flying in that, you weren't going to go flying a lot of the time, because that's just what it's like. Right. And then I moved out west, and then like, they're like, yeah, the wind limit is 10 knots. And I'm like, sorry, what now? And I mean, but it never gets windy. Like it's like 7 knots most of the time, and that's like a fine day. And then the one day it gets up to like 10 gusts 15, and all the flight instructors are like, is it safe? Like, can we go flying? And I'm like, oh, this is funny, because like 25 gusting 35 was normal for me.
It's normal.
Yeah.
Well, it's normal for everyone in the Sims. They do that on purpose.
I know.
All these landing challenges.
And I know. That's what I love about. That's what I love about the sim. It actually works really well sort of being in the airlines, because like there's days where sometimes my flights in real life will get canceled because of weather. So I'm home, and then I can control, and then all the flight sim people are going to the airport that I was supposed to go to, because they're like, yeah, it's a bad weather day, let's go flying in there. Right. So it actually kind of complements very nicely.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Oh yeah. Anytime there's like a big,
let's go to the airport that should be closed. Yeah.
Yeah. Like anytime there's a big nor'easter, like that kind of, shuts down like the New York, Washington, Boston corridor, like that spot on VATSIM is just lit up because everyone wants to go there. And I mean, why not? Like you don't have to worry about snow plows on the runway. You just land. It's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's the fun of the sim. I mean, we are the group I fly with. Well, it's mainly my fault. We're not that serious sometimes. So that's, when I go flying in real life, there's no. I've never used the helicopter like a lawn dart. Now, I didn't do that on purpose, but it happens. So we have a lot of fun because it's a simulator and we can do stuff. Well, also we're flying low and slow, and you can do that in real life, but not like, you don't want to fly below the wires. We like to use wires to fly under, and you don't do that in the real world.
No, not typically a good idea.
No, not a good idea. I mean, in all seriousness, we've lost a lot of helicopter pilots from invisible wires. That's one big thing in the Northwest, because you cannot see them. So, which I don't think people realize, that when you're flying, you really can't see power lines. It's pretty scary. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think that's just to talk about, you're talking about your group and the type of flying you do. I think that's what's cool about both our show, but just our community more broadly, is there's so many different aspects of flight simulation that you could get into. Like if you want to take it super seriously, maybe I should just say seriously, because VATSIM's not that serious. But anyway, if you want to go that route, it's there. If you want to fly combat sim, it's there. If you want to do something more casual and fly as a group, it's there. You want to use Xbox, you want to use your phone. Like there's just so much to this community that all comes together at a show like ours. And when you get to just see the way that I'm fortunate enough to do, like I'll talk to you one day, and then I'll be on a stream with someone who's like super serious about air traffic control and procedures. We're talking VATSIM, and it's just like, what a amazing thing that this basically, one piece of technology or this one kind of simulated environment can support so many different things.
It is really amazing, and it can support training, which I just had finished my PPL when they got a Redbird trainer at the school. And so it was like, damn, because I could have saved about almost half the price in that trainer. It was, it was and is FAA certified. So that's a huge boost for anyone training, that you can do that now. You can use basically desktop simulator software and train and get hours. So that's pretty amazing.
Have you done our survey, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Okay, good. Yes, because we're doing, I mean, that's what we're trying to prove. And it's like, the certified devices, everyone gets that, right? Mm-hmm. But as you know, what we're trying to say is the non-certified device that you might use at home with VATSIM or Pilot Edge or nothing is quite valuable as well. And so we're hoping through this survey to be able to show, like, here's the group of pilots who never used Flight Sim. They took 75 hours to get their certificate. Here's the group of pilots who did use Flight Sim and they took 65, right? That would be a huge finding if that is in fact what we're seeing. So we're trying to establish, what is that relationship, and is there a way to actually put some math and some numbers behind it?
Oh, that's a great thing to find out because I think I was under 60 and my instructor was pretty, he was pretty impressed. And
That is, yeah,
it
that's
was
like
like,
shocking. Yeah.
well, you just memorize these answers. It's no big deal. But the flight sim helped a ton. And he would say that because FSX is nowhere near a certified simulator, but it has everything. It has all the gauges where they're supposed to be. His biggest complaint was, you need to look outside because I would,
Yes.
I'm looking at my
Yep.
screen and then I go to the real world and it's like, those gauges don't matter most of the time. Don't look, don't look
Yeah,
at those. It's a different, we're here.
That's so frequently a
yeah.
comment that we hear. Yeah, absolutely. And then it's funny because then when it helps again though, if you've done your IFR, have you done much IFR training?
No, very little. That was my next step was to go to IFR. Yeah.
And when you get there, now actually that like looking inside will help because one of the things that flight simulation is great for is you're looking at what you see and you're flying based on that. Whereas a lot of pilots who never use flight sim, they're used to just flying by feel, and that does not work in IMC. And so if you can decouple that part of your body and sort of just ignore what you're feeling and focus on what the instruments say, I mean, that's IFR flying in a nutshell. So it's kind of funny because all the way through your VFR flying, it's like, don't look inside, ignore the gauges, focus outside. That's what we all tell simmers. Then you get into the IFR world and you're like, yeah, that ability to ignore outside and just focus on this is actually going to be quite helpful for you.
Well, I do remember when we did our upset training, you do take the hood on even for a PPL.
Yeah.
And when we did that, we did it for a few minutes, literally. And he was like, well, you got that. We don't need to worry about that. You're fine. Because he put me in all different attitudes and unusual attitudes. And I just was like, oh, okay, that's where we are. No big deal.
Yep.
And
if you've never done
it was funny.
And if you can do it like safely in an airplane, one of the really fun things to do is to put the hood on. Obviously, you need a safety pilot with you, and just try to fly by feel and try to see if you can keep the airplane straight and level. I did this with an instructor one of the first times that we put the hood on, and I'm like, oh, I'm doing great. Like, this feels like everything's good. And he's like, okay, like look up, and we're in a spiral. I had no idea, like no clue whatsoever, right? It just felt like I was straight and level. So if you get the chance to do that in a way that's safe, it's a really, really, I'm gonna say eye-opening, but you're under the hood, so not really, kind of experience to be able to just that you have no chance whatsoever of keeping the plane in any type of safe state if you're not looking at instruments. There's no chance.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. I mean, It's not surprising. Thank you so much for the subscribe. That is awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming in. Only 6 more days. I can't wait either. I'm really nervous. I'm already having some nights where I can barely sleep, and I don't get to sleep Thursday night because my plane leaves ridiculously early.
Yeah,
5:30 in the morning. That's a little early for me, not for everyone. Some people are up that.
No, that's early. That's early.
That's early. But yeah, I know there's a lot of schools now that teach upset training. They'll take you up in a stunt plane and they'll do just that. They'll teach you they'll take you up in a safe environment and let you experience what that's like to try and fly in different ways and different things you supposedly can't do in a 172, which is also the fun of a sim, is you can go up. None of the planes are realistic enough yet. Like, none of the wings will fly off of these things that I found in a sim. But you can you can see what it's like doing rolls in a 172 or a 152, and you can try and do a loop, and you can do all these things that your instructor tells you definitely do not do. And you can do it in a certified 152. You can do those things, but you have to be rated for it. So that's part of the real fun of the sim as well. How many people do you have now? It seems like are you still adding people to the event? Is there even more people coming out? Because
like you're talking about attendees or exhibitors and sponsors?
Exhibitors.
I mean, officially, I'd like to hope not, because it's like a week before the show, and I think we closed our exhibit registration in May. But what tends to happen is that stuff changes at the last minute, and there's one of those happening right now. I don't want to talk about it because we haven't announced it yet, but stuff does happen. So yes, there's going to be a few more things that probably change between now and next week. And actually, we've been very subtly and quietly adding different exhibitors. If you've been watching our floor plan, which is really cool. We added this floor plan this year. You can see the whole kind of space and move it around and see where everyone is. But we've been making these subtle changes and adding exhibitors to different booths. And so if you haven't looked at it in a while, probably a good idea to go back and have a scroll through that again before you jump in and head to the show. Of course, Microsoft was the big one that we added there just a couple of weeks ago, but there have been a few other small changes here and there, and we've just been, just shifting things around a little bit. So we're hoping that most of everything should be finalized by the time being, week or so in advance of the show. But, it's flight sim, things change.
Things change. So do you mind telling me all about the new Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024?
Yeah,
you just go ahead and fill me in there?
Yeah, pretty much what'll happen is you're just going to press a button and like an airplane will just appear, and then you just fly it, and it'll appear around you, and it will be like a total out of body experience, complete with the food, the drinks, everything that you can imagine about being on a commercial flight. It's all going to happen just right there in your living room, and then when you're done, you just press a button, and it all folds back down, and I think that's what it's going to be like.
And for $60. What a deal.
Oh, yes. No, actually, just it'll be 60 cents, actually.
60 cents. 60 cents, of course. What am I thinking?
Yeah.
I'm still shocked when people think that the sim is expensive, because
I know.
I paid like $70 for the FSX 12 years ago or something. So it really hasn't gone up, which means it's gone down. The price has literally gone down. And when we first got into this new sim, everything was cheaper at first. It's starting to go back up to the prices that we had before, but I still just bought a couple of planes for less than $20.
Yeah.
So that wasn't really around in even P3D. They were more than that. So yeah, and it always amazes me, the price of this. Not that I'm encouraging going out and spending all your money on a sim if you don't have it. None of us do that.
Yes. No, I think that's a good point. And we have that for the show as well. A little bit less this year because we're in a museum, and you're going to feel that. Well, maybe not you because you haven't been there before, but if you've been to our events in the past, you'll feel the difference in the pricing of things like food and drinks as compared to, a Vegas hotel, right? Like, and there's some pretty obvious reasons as to why that is, but we have that same thing. People come to the show and they're like, for the $50 that I paid for FSExpo, I expect breakfast, lunch, and dinner on all 3 days. And I'm like, have you ever tried to buy a lunch or breakfast or dinner on the Strip in Vegas? Because one of those is like $70, never mind 3 days worth of stuff. So we have that same thing. And I think people's expectations sometimes of what they're getting for what things should cost just don't always add up.
I was just going to bring a bunch of baggies for the first night with the
It's a good idea.
thing. Since there is an event with food, I'm just going to pack it away.
Yeah, and just fill them up. Yeah,
and I
like that
or
idea.
I could just eat enough. I don't need to eat for 2 days. What the heck?
No, it's really, honestly, this year is very easy. Like in normal years, that's the problem. But because we're at a museum, like we've got food trucks coming in. They've got a catering company that's doing lunch on both days at the Lone Star Flight Museum. And there's lots nearby because we're near the airport. So you got all the airport hotels, all the fast food chains. If you want higher end, it's there. Like there's so much choice in Houston that's just an easier event and kind of a more accessible event as compared to, going to the Vegas Strip where, like, yes, of course you have every choice in the world, but it's just expensive.
Yeah, and I realized after I already signed up for the event, I realized Houston is massive. Of course it has good food.
Yeah.
And it's Texas. So, there's good food. Yeah. The South has good food. I know that, actually. I know that from experience.
So does Oregon, but
it does. Oregon has more and more good food. You guys are known
as the foodies, right?
It's true. Yeah. I was complaining about my food last night where I ate because something wasn't perfect. Definitely a foodie. And my girlfriend's a good cook. So my girlfriend, she's my wife now. I forget. My wife is a good cook, and I forget. I'm going to let you go soon. I know you have to keep packing.
Yeah, it's just that I would like to have clothes for the next week, and I think everyone at the show would appreciate that also.
You just got to go to get the camping underwear that you simply wash in the sink, and no. With the way the heat is, I'm thinking I'm going to need more clothes than I usually have. need a lot
Yeah,
of clothes. Yeah.
and I mean, I fortunately I wear the same, not the same exact shirt, but we have a uniform, like a Flight Sim Expo volunteer shirt that every year everyone asks me if they're for sale, and they are not for sale. You cannot get them. The only way to get them is to be a volunteer. They're very, very exclusive. But anyway, we have these shirts, and Phil and I were just having this conversation because he's like, people can have one shirt for 3 days, and I'm like, that is not going to work, buddy.
Oh yeah,
That is not gonna work.
not so
So,
much, not so
so
much.
we talked him off that ledge, and we're gonna have fresh shirts every day.
And is there any thought of doing it in other areas outside the U.S. in the future, or is it pretty much is it kind of attendee?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the attendees and the community, but I don't see it moving. I mean, I live in Canada, so it would be really convenient for me to have it in Toronto.
Mhm.
But I don't know that we will see the same level of interest if you go, somewhere outside of the US in North America. Like people from Canada all the time are like, why isn't the show in here? And I'm like, well, just so few, honestly, like will that many Americans travel outside of the US to Canada? I mean, it would make a lot of sense. It'd be very cheap for everybody. You guys would get everything at like 40% off, but I'm not sure that is tenable. And you think about all the developers and some of the big companies that are US based. I think going to, Canada, Mexico, something like that just doesn't quite jive. And when you look at anything outside of the continent, Europe has, I'm hoping, two shows, certainly one great show, which is the one in Lelystad. I would hope that Flight Sim Show in Cosford is coming back. So I don't know that they need any more than that. And, that kind of leaves like Australia, which does have its own kind of mini show that's combined with an air show. So I think we've got most of the world covered for Flight Sim shows, and I think we're pretty happy with where we're at. But you never know. If people were really excited about Vancouver or Montreal or Toronto, or maybe we want to go to Medicine Hat, Alberta, or we want to go to Nunavut. I mean, whatever. If people are really interested in somewhere in Canada, that would make my life just that much easier. But I just don't know that I see the same level of interest for one of those cities as I would for San Diego or like Las Vegas or Orlando. That's been my sort of perception of what people have been saying.
Plus, didn't is it Hortons, the donuts and coffee place?
Tim Hortons.
Tim Hortons, didn't they close?
No, they're still here.
Oh, I thought they closed because that's one reason to go to Canada. Oh, you don't like them?
No,
it's like Dunkin's here then.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm not a huge fan. I mean, they have like their like bagels and stuff are fine. I just don't like their coffee.
Yeah, that is a very important question. Jepson's asking, does the event center have AC?
Yes, there's air conditioning everywhere. I know. Can you imagine? Well, actually, we were looking at the Sun and Fun campus because I thought that would be a really cool place to run the show, but we wanted to do it in June, and they have no air conditioning. And like, but it'll be fine. And I'm like, it will not be fine.
No.
Like, we are not going to Florida or anywhere else where there's no air conditioning. I promise you, there's air conditioning at all of the locations that Flight Sim Expo will be at. And I pressured the museum quite a bit on this because I was like, it can't be like, you have one portable air conditioner, right? Like there's going to be 2,000 people in this place. It needs to be cold. And they know that. They have an excellent AC system. She said actually just like 3 or 4 days ago, they just had it like tuned up and kind of like its annual whatever inspection that you do on an air conditioner is called. That's what they did. So it is well air conditioned and we will all be comfortable.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yes. I mean, I'll probably be sweating anyway because I'm on a panel and stuff.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Yeah, doing a panel.
Yeah.
But I'm the smallest streamer on it, so I can just hang out and listen to the big guys. I think
it'll be fun. It's got a nice variety, different platforms. But YouTube, they got the podcasting side covered as well. Lots of Twitch on there, so I think that'll be good fun.
It'll be great. I'm so honored to be asked, and it's so awesome of Scruffy Tam to put that together. It was, it was his brainstorm.
Yes.
Very cool. Very cool for him to come up with that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to that one. And really just, I mean, all the sessions on the show are really interesting because they're all just like what you said, built by the community. It wasn't me that put these together. It wasn't me that went out and asked Bill to put this panel together. He's like, hey, I want to do this. And I've got these 5 people. And we're like, great, that sounds interesting. And every piece of content that you see at the show, especially on Saturday and Sunday, it's all just individual flight simmers such as yourself who are interested in something, have a passion about something, and they decided to speak about it. And so it's really an interesting, totally community-led effort that generates the kind of content that you see at this show. And would be remiss if I didn't say, for those who can't make it to Houston, because I know not everyone can do that, we do have access to that event that you can buy. It's $15, gives you access to the whole weekend. All those seminars, you can watch them live, you can watch them on demand, and it's a great way to support the show, even if you can't be there in person, be able to basically take home a little bit of the experience, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it afterwards.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you reminded people of that, because it's hard to get to for a lot of us.
Yes.
I'm really I'm in a different circumstance this year than I was years ago. So really glad that I can go, but it's actually not, it's still fairly inexpensive if you're interested. So is there anyone in chat who has any questions beyond what I've asked, who wants to know more? Let me know.
You just want me to get out of the way so you can get to flying? Probably. That's usually how it goes.
Well, I'm just going to fly a little bit. I don't even know. Well, there'll be people to fly if I start flying. You can see across the top of the screen all the people that are going to be there. Is there any, what is the most, did I ask you this already? What is the most exciting part for you? I know you said meeting people, but is there any product that you're most kind of excited about hearing about or checking out, or have you already seen it all, or is there?
Well, see, the thing is, I know some things that I can't share, so it'd be tough for me to say, because I know there's certain things that are getting announced on Friday that I can't talk about. So I will leave Friday out of the question, because you can see who's presenting, and that's all I'll talk about with Friday. But for Saturday and Sunday, I think, no, it's all really interesting is my short answer. Every year you go to different developers' booths, even if they've been at the show before, and they usually have something different because a year's gone by. We have a number of new developers this year, people that many of Flight Sim have never seen before. The Yamen Aero, that new controller, will be on display. It'll be the first place you're going to be able to try that. We have about, I think they said 4 or 5 demo stations in our VR Experience Center, where you'll be able to try a whole bunch of different VR headsets, which if you've never tried VR before, you need to put one on. It is a totally life-changing experience, especially in the simulator. So whether it's something you decide to buy or not, that's a different question. But where else can you go where you can try on 10 different VR headsets over the course of an hour and be able to experience how that changes the flight simulation world? So that'll be very cool. Any builds, it's sort of the first time that they've been out in full force to a show like this, and just with the amount of electrical that they need, I know they have something special going on. I won't share any more than that. Of course, with MSFS being there, I could just I'd have to go through the whole list of exhibitors and be able to tell you something interesting that's happening. But there's a lot going on at this year's event, and if you want to have just a little taste of what to expect, on our schedule page over at FlightSimExpo.com, you'll see we have a bunch of exhibitor highlights, stuff that we know is happening at different booths, be they drop-ins from content creators, be they new announcements. Just Flight is announcing what they're calling a new study level airliner for MSFS at 2:00. So there's just all kinds of stuff like that. And I think you'll find that if you are anywhere in and around this event, you'll be struggling, because it's do I go to this thing or that thing? And that's what we're trying to create. It's just this experience where it's wow, there was a lot going on that weekend.
Oh, I see Microsoft Flight Simulator has an announcement. Well,
yes, on Friday.
So you can tell us about that, though, right? There's no one really listening. You can.
I am 100% sure that even if Jorg wanted me to know, he still wouldn't tell me, because I don't think he trusts me well enough to not share the secret. So no, I'm not going to. Actually, I literally don't know what they're going to talk about. They
must have very strong NDAs at that company. That's all I can
would
say.
Think so.
Jepson had a really good question. How long does it take you to recover? Which is a question I had, and I forgot to answer. How long do you need? Do you have to jump right back in and go right back to work as soon as you get back? You have a flight on Monday?
No, one of the things we do is, again, we talked about that volunteer team, and they really are our main point of contact and point of reference on the ground for making this show happen. So on Sunday night, one of the nice kind of unwind things that we do is we do a nice kind of volunteer dinner. This year we've rented out a bar in downtown Houston, and we're just going with that group of about 20, 30 of us that'll be able to kind of do a little bit of that unwinding. Mm-hmm. And then following that, just a bunch of my friends who are going to be at this show are kind of doing our own little mini vacation getaway thing right after the event. So that's kind of my little mini break. I don't actually go back to work for a couple of weeks. Actually, I'm off till about the 6th or 7th of July. So that is nice. And there'll be a little bit of relaxation in there, but there's a lot that happens right after the show. So we really want to not lose that momentum. We want to be talking about what all the things are that happened and highlighting some of the announcements, and obviously working on finding the venue for 2024. So all that stuff kind of happens for like the next month and a half after the show. And then usually the end of the summer, like August, September, those are kind of like the, okay, we can breathe a little bit, relax, and then we kind of kick things back into gear coming up toward the end of the year as we start to really push into the next one.
That's awesome. Portland has got some great spots. It's really nice in June.
Yes,
really nice.
I love whenever like we did a lot of those surveys back about where do we want to have the event, and lots of great input. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying this to belittle anyone's comments, but it's always funny when someone is like, I know this great place in this city, and they give you all these tips, and then you kind of look at their profile and you're like, oh, from Indianapolis, and what are they suggesting? Oh, Indianapolis. Like, yeah, that makes sense. So I would also love for this show to be held in a backyard, but unfortunately I live in an apartment, so my backyard isn't quite big enough. But there's lots of great places in the US. We have a very interesting show profile, and if I was to explain the whole venue sourcing process, we'd need another hour-long live stream that no one would want to watch. But I would love to go to more cities than we currently can. And actually a good part of this year's event will be kind of seeing what people think, because it's our first year where we've got a split between our Saturday and Sunday are at a venue, but then our hotels are somewhere else.
Oh, right.
And so I'm curious to know what people think about that. Do they like the fact that we have that split? If they do, that opens up a lot of other cities, because we can look at convention center spaces that aren't necessarily tied to a hotel. On the other hand, if people are saying, I really like the commute being from my hotel room down the elevator to the ballroom, which is the easiest commute I can imagine. If that's what people like, and that is probably what I prefer, then we're a little bit more limited, because there's only so many cities that have a hotel that would have a giant 3 or 4 ballroom setup and 500 or 600 rooms that you can book out the entire space with. And so that's why you see us kind of gravitating toward some of those big event cities, as opposed to some of the places, like I'm sure Portland has a wonderful convention center, but it probably doesn't have a hotel that's like self-contained enough to support us, if that makes sense.
It does. That totally makes sense. Eugene, then.
Well, if you want to buy some property, and we probably need a couple acres, a few nice solid year-round structures, air conditioning for our friends who are asking the question in the chat. Whenever you've got all that set up for us, let me know, and we'll be happy to pay you back in flights and add-ons.
Excellent. I'll keep you up to date on that. Yeah.
Yes, please do. Yeah,
well,
maybe a couple runways would be nice too.
What's that?
A couple runways would be nice.
We have 2 runways.
Okay. No, I mean but this is all in your private airstrip.
Oh, in my little space. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can probably just buy the airport. It's little.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, let's do that.
It's got one 8,000-foot runway.
We actually, there's a few airports that have closed terminals, and I've tried reaching out to be like, could we do it in like an old airport terminal? But not surprisingly, nobody wants to talk to me.
Not surprisingly. Well, listen, I know you got to go. I know you got to do that packing thing and get out there. And maybe I know you'll be really busy, but maybe I'll get to meet you when we're out there.
Yes, please come say hi.
Say hello. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I will.
It'll be a quick hello, but I appreciate them all, and I would love to spend more time with everybody that says hello. And there's just it's usually not even like I'm like busy doing something fun. It's like I have to go sort these t-shirts now. So that's usually what it is. But please do come say hi. Don't be shy to do that. It's great to be able to put real faces to the names that I've either seen online or the people I've seen on screens. And so please do come say hi. And I hope you have a wonderful time at the show. You enjoy it, because I'll be busy.
You'll be. It sounds like I'll be busy too, to be honest with you.
Yes,
it sounds
probably will.
Like it'll be pretty crazy. Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming in. For everyone watching, hang out a minute. I'm going to come back with some planes. I'm going to put up the break screen, and then I'm going to come right back. So, just hang out. Well, I have to figure out my tech, because I messed everything up when I tried to do this.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
Red Heron, thanks for coming by. We will be back to show a helicopter and a plane in a second. Let's see. I got to do 3 things. I got to go.